Welcome into One of One Sports, the only one for your original sports takes, commentary, analysis, and of course, predictions. Today, we continue our college football prediction series entering the Big 12. Today's team, the Arizona State Sun Devils. Before we get started with the video, I have to ask you guys to subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit 200 subscribers before the start of college football season, but I need your guys' help to do it. Now, on to the video. Last season, ASU was able to be one of the biggest surprise teams in college football, arguably the biggest, right up there with teams like Indiana, maybe an SMU you want to throw in there, finishing the regular season 10-2. And after being picked to finish dead last in the Big 12, they end up making the conference championship game, blowing out Iowa State, and securing a first round bye in the college football playoff. I don't know anyone who predicted that. They completely came out of nowhere and were just one of the best stories in college football and pushed Texas to the brink, going into double overtime before losing. And there was some controversy even that game with the calls that are being made. And ASU had a chance to make the semifinals of the college football playoff, which was truly a special season for them. But expectations are high once again. Getting into what they lose from last year's team, you do lose your best player, running back Cam Scatabo, do-it-all type of player, goes to the NFL draft to the New York Giants. And I think really, if you watch the playoff, you got the full Scatabo experience. He threw for a touchdown. He ran, or I don't think he threw for a touchdown, but he threw the deep pass. He ran for a ton. He just seemed to never give up, even though he's not the biggest guy out there. Just a really great player, fun player to watch, hard worker. But outside of that, you don't lose too much. You lose your left guard, and then you lose your number 2 receiver and Xavier Guillory. And then defensively, your biggest loss is defensive MVP Shamari Simmons at nickel, and you lose 2 other defensive starters. That means you return a whole bunch. You're second in the entire country in returning production, only behind Clemson. Your biggest returners are obviously Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson. Sam Leavitt is a guy I think is probably the best quarterback in the Big 12. And if you look at most quarterback rankings, you'll see that as well. He was really good as a redshirt freshman last year for ASU. And I think has areas to grow to get even better. Now, he won't have the run, probably won't have quite the run game to support him, but he's a guy who he adds a running element, and another year in the system with Kenny Dillingham, I think will take a step forward. Helping him out will be wide receiver Jordan Tyson, all Big 12 selection last year, over 1,000-yard receiver. Wasn't able to go in the playoff game, but is probably the best receiver in the Big 12 and a projected All-American. So Sam Leavitt, Jordan Tyson gives you best quarterback wide receiver duo in the conference. Along with that, you return 4 starting O-linemen, and then you return Kyson Brown, who's your backup running back, to Scatabo. You return Shaman Mateer. I may be saying that wrong. Tight end for ASU at about 300 yards. Good player, should be back. And then defensively, you return 9 starters, the best of which are safety Xavier Alsford, defensive tackle CJ Fight, and linebacker Keyshawn Elliott. You should have a pretty solid defense, as it was really getting good down the stretch of the year. Most of that returns, and you added, if we go through this, 4 defensive backs from the portal, along with 2 defensive linemen to supplement. You also added a bunch of wide receivers from the portal. Jalen Moss from Fresno State, probably the best and likely to get the most run, but Jaron Hamilton from Alabama could make an impact. Maybe Noble Johnson and Kamari Anderson, wide receiver from Clemson, tight end from Kentucky, could get involved too. You also had 4 O-linemen, and then potentially your biggest portal additions were Kanye Udo, over 1,000-yard rusher for Army last year, which, yeah, you're going to get a lot of temps playing at a service academy, but when you run for that many yards, you clearly are a good player, and they're going to need him to produce to help replace Scatabo. Not much of a threat in the receiving game, unlike Scatabo, but I do think there's a player they have, we'll talk about in a second, that could add to that. And then kicker Jesus Gomez transfers in from Eastern Michigan, which if you watched ASU last year, they had to go for a ton of 4th downs because they couldn't even rely on kickers to consistently make extra points, certainly not field goals. So getting in a real kicker transfer should help Kenny Dillingham's team out a lot. Before we move on to the official record prediction, also want to point out that Kenny Dillingham, after a great season, was able to retain pretty much his entire staff, his OC, his DC, which is really good news for them, helps with the continuity of this team along with bringing everyone back. So yeah, expectations are high for this ASU football team. As far as the strength and weaknesses, it was a lot of what we just mentioned. The returning production being that high, the continuity of these teams, so you think they can at least carry over what they did, maybe improve upon it. And then the QB play, Sam Levitt, we talked about him. The weaknesses, like we've mentioned, report Scatabo is your best player. You're losing him. I do think, along with Kanye Uda replacing him, Kyson Brown being a supplement, and then Raleek Brown, a player transferred in from USC before, was injured a lot last year. He's more of a speed guy, can play some wide receiver, can do some return game stuff, add some passing from the backfield. You play him at running back. Just a really speedy gadget type guy. I think they can use more this year to help kind of add to the running back by committee approach to replacing Scatabo. And then the overall talent. This team has a lot of people really high on them this season. A lot of people think they can get back to the college football playoff. But the goal for ASU, potentially, if you want to improve on last year, is actually winning a playoff game, competing at an even higher level. And I don't know that you have the top end talent to do that because you didn't bring in elite transfers or elite recruits or anything like that. Like, you're really good, but I don't know if you have the talent to take the next step. Getting into the game by game prediction, you should start off with a win over the Northern Arizona Lumberjacks, not a Division I football program. Not much to be said there. Then you go on the road into what is a pretty tough place to play with the Cowbells in Mississippi State. Luckily for ASU, I think they scheduled the worst team in the SEC for this upcoming year, a Mississippi State team that has not found a direction after the passing of Mike Leach, and I think is going to struggle once again this season. ASU should win, and then same thing, beat Texas State to finish your non-conference slate 3-0. Then ASU starts the non-conference slate with a couple of tricky games. Two teams I think are going to be pretty good and actually contend in the Big 12. First, a road trip to Baylor, a team with Sawyer Robinson and Bryson Washington. So they have the best quarterback running back duo potentially in the conference. I expect this game to be a shootout, but ASU has the stronger defense, so I think they can make one or two more stops than a Baylor team that I don't trust their defense at the moment. They go on the road to get the win, and then a home Friday night game against TCU. I like the spot for them. You start off 5-0, including 2-0 in conference play. Then you get a good bye week. I think after two pretty tough games, you get the reset. Unfortunately, I do think you're going to lose coming out of the bye week. I think Utah is going to be the most improved team in the Big 12 most likely, and I think their physicality, controlling the line of scrimmage this game, and can put up a lot of rushing yards is going to lead to some struggles for ASU. I expect Utah to kind of dominate time of possession and just keep the ball out of a high-octane Arizona State offense, and Utah to win this game at home. But then you bounce back with one of the biggest games in the conference this year, two teams who both expect to win it with how much Texas Tech has invested. And at home, I think you get the win in another high-scoring showdown. I think ASU can have a lot of exciting games this year. I expect this to be one of them. But yeah, I like you at home. I like your quarterback a little bit more than Baron Morton. I think you have a little more offensive options. I like the O-line. And Texas Tech, look, they brought in a ton of transfers. I expect it to gel pretty well, but I don't think it's just going to be a seamless fit, and they're just going to be because they have the most talent with how much money they've invested, but I don't think they're automatically going to be the best team. Then you stay at home and you beat the Houston Cougars, a team I think should be better, but I don't think they're ready to compete with the top end of the Big 12 this year, which ASU is in that category. But then going on the road to Ames, Iowa, a really tough game, a team looking for revenge after you embarrassed them last year. Rocco Beck there. They should have a run game. You would think they've figured out the receiver options by now after losing Jalen Noel, Jaden Higgins. And I think you lose this to an experienced Iowa State team on the road. Pretty tough travel spot, good home field advantage, in my opinion. And yeah, I think ASU is going to lose this one before getting their final bye week of the year. And I think it's pretty well placed before you get a home game against West Virginia. New coach Rich Rodriguez, I expect them to be improved, but like Houston, they're not ready to compete with the top level of the Big 12 like ASU. You then go on the road where I think you can defeat the Colorado Buffaloes. They're losing Shedeur Sanders. They're losing Travis Hunter. I don't expect them to be competing for the top of the Big 12 this year. ASU, I clearly do expect that, and I think you can win that game on the road before beating your rival Arizona, who hopefully I grew up rooting for Arizona, so I'm hoping they bounce back this year. But Brent Brennan didn't show me a lot in his first year as coach. Fafita took a step back. You lose Tedero and McMillan. So even if you're improved, like you were so bad last year, I can't imagine you getting to a much better level where you're traveling on the road to an ASU team coming off a playoff berth and winning that game. That means I have ASU finishing 10-2, potentially good enough to head back to the Big 12 championship with just 2 losses in conference. A very successful season for the Arizona State Sun Devils. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Feel free to suggest any teams you want to see up next in the comment section. Until next time.